It's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay, it's Andrew Rasmussen, and it's good to speak with you again, my friend.
Good to speak with you as well. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. So, would you share with us a little bit of your background, just so people know who you are? And I know you're an artist, a musician, but go ahead and share with us your background.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a Danish, U.S. born, and kind of grew up in the Midwest of the United States. But done a lot of traveling. As you said, I am a musician. I've been working a long time with a couple different frequencies to kind of help create healing music, and I had a lot of offers from Reiki practitioners who want to use my music, or excuse me, not use, work with my music with their work, and massage therapists as well. I'm also a psychic. Been a psychic since birth, or as long as I can remember. I don't know, a lot of different experiences growing up as a kid, and even till this day, of course, with things getting more intense, things get more intense for me with my abilities as well. So, I guess you can call me kind of a bit of a naturalist. Not that I'm too into labeling, but I definitely believe in, preventative health care and taking care of yourself and so on and so forth with natural means as much as possible. Little things like that. But I don't know, I think I'm a rather simple person. I do a lot of communication with angels, as I have been my entire life.
And you said you have one particular one that you call on the most, or you're able to channel from the most.
Yep, the one I channel from the most is the angel Azrael.
Okay.
And I do speak to Gabriel a lot too. Not as much as Azrael, but Gabriel does come in. Not really he or she, from what I gathered, but he does come in quite often. There seems to be kind of a spiritual relationship there. And Michael, here and there, not as much as Gabriel. And Metatron on rare occasions too.
Awesome. And I know you've shared with me some impressions on things that you felt were coming. And, is there anything that you feel is really, really pressing right now? Anything that you feel is like some of the most important things to touch on as far as letting our viewers know, our listeners know?
Well, as I touched base briefly a moment ago, things are definitely intensifying right now. And it's just staying alert and aware. It's definitely the two words I've been hearing the most the past couple weeks is being alert, being aware, because things are changing so rapidly. As we spoke last week, it just felt like there was that huge shift that I just did not feel coming beforehand. A lot of times I have a pretty good intuition about those things. Like, hey, there's going to be a shift into this. So I get like a pre-alert before the alert comes around. But last week it was totally different. And it just seemed like everything that I saw that was to happen over the next few years, 5 years, from what I felt, is going to happen a lot sooner. Such as, I did tell you World War III had already started, and we don't see a battle yet. Most people think that when there's war, there's battle. I'm like, no, not really at this time. That day is coming. I hope it doesn't, just for the sake of safety and health, but it's more internally, financially, politically, and then of course there's wars and rumors of wars. As my grandmother, she's also a pretty powerful psychic herself. It kind of runs in the family. She told me as a young child, she said, when you're a little older, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars, and that's kind of what's happening now. But just people right now definitely need to be alert and aware and be ready for anything. I know you had been talking with Asia, who is just phenomenal. so much respect for that woman. And you've been telling people to be prepared as well and get the bug out bags, and absolutely, I've definitely been feeling that. I have been feeling that people need to be prepared to move for whatever circumstance. And you're going to have to travel light. Keep it simple. Maybe like a utility knife in a bag, some food, water being very important. I was just reminded of a few different things I wanted to share with your listeners to kind of keep in that bag as well.
Sure.
And one of the most important substances they could carry is oregano oil. And there's a specific brand, and no, I don't sell this brand or anything. I'm not affiliated with it. I'm just a big fan. It's called North American Herb and Spice, and they sell a P73 oregano oil, which is diluted with the olive oil, and then they sell super strength oregano oil, which I believe is just straight oregano oil. And if you get the super strength and you want to consume it as a natural antibiotic, which is very powerful, if you take the super strength, you have to dilute it, otherwise it'll burn the membranes in your mouth and in your esophagus. But it's great topically as an ointment. It's like I said, a natural antibiotic, it's just natural substance all around. But you can use that in lieu of Neosporin, and it's great for oil pulling. Have you ever oil pulled before, Michael?
Yes, yeah, I have. I do think that's a great thing to do too. Also, tea tree oil is just amazing. Antibacterial.
Yes.
Yeah, those are two key ones for sure.
Yeah, so to me, there's like three main ones, or at least for me, it's three, two or three. For me, it's three main ones: oregano oil, lavender, and lilac or rose. Lilac is really hard to find, but I suggest the lilac or lavender or rose because it's a great aromatherapy. So in times of high stress, you dab a little bit of that underneath your nose, and you get that aroma. It helps you stay calm. For me, it's just pleasant. I learned to stay calm through many different situations, so I'm okay. But for others, that can serve a great purpose. I feel definitely people should invest in a good multivitamin, in the event that maybe your food isn't the most nutritious.
For sure.
And, this is definitely the time for people to start focusing in and fixing their diets. And you said something, I believe it was this morning, I listened to your recording, it was so beautiful and so true that, when you bless your food, you do better by blessing your food, basically. I can't remember exactly what you said, but it was so on point. At the same time, I'm not encouraging people to run out and buy something from McDonald's, but no offense to those who are listening who eat McDonald's. It's just personally, I think there's better food for you. But also, the other thing, probably most importantly over anything really, it's just, this is definitely a time for love, and some people don't fully understand what love means. They think it's just, I find somebody and I crawl in the bed with them. Like, no, that's not exactly all it. It's just love and having compassion for one another, especially in this time. And I just really feel like the angels cannot stress that any further, because love energy changes everything. Everything enters in the heart chakra. It's just so your mindset, your behavior, your activities, and how you feel towards one another completely changes for the most positive benefit you can imagine.
Yes, I agree totally. And that's one of the things I was sharing with a friend this weekend. Just sharing, I was sharing some mantra music from like David Premal and Sneddon Kaur and some of those, and just saying how, originally when I went and started to research other religions and all, this is back when I was very young, and really it was from the point of view of being a born-again Christian and wanting to see what the devil was doing, quote unquote. And what I found was quite the opposite of what I was, kind of conditioned to expect. And I found just simply quite a lot of love and just beautiful energy coming from people of all different backgrounds. And I've shared with you guys before that, I've taken part in Catholic ceremonies and Baptist, evangelical, ones where people were laying on of hands, and honestly, I felt that power and thought, holy cow, this is amazing energy. And then also, I've taken part in Wiccan circles, I've taken part in Jewish ceremonies, I've taken part in Hindu, everything, and experienced them. And the common core is when people gather together out of love, you get love. It's just that simple. So it's really all about where's your heart, where's your intention. And I know you have a beautiful heart, my friend, and I know your intention is great too.
That.
Oh, well, I could just tell as we've gotten to be friends and talk more. You just know. So you have seen visions like specifically about your area, and really, it does remind me a lot of Edgar Casey's, to some degree, and others as well. Do you want to share anything specifically for what you've seen, as far as some of the things we've talked about, Earth change wise?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to return the compliment, I find you to be a very beautiful person, Michael. I always have since the day I stumbled across your YouTube channel, and like the first 10 minutes, I'm like, this gentleman understands. So I'm like, thank goddess. Anyway, excuse me, dry throat. So I don't know if you have any other listeners that are in the Omaha area. I'll touch base on that region real quick. For a long time, I have been receiving very interesting visions where it feels like I'm actually standing in the moment of that vision. Like everything's very real, where the city of Omaha, Nebraska actually has a major seaport, and it kind of looks like the water or the coastal edge in Chicago. I remember the first time that it happened, I was walking. You guys, anybody can look this up on Google Earth and look at the street view on maps, but if you go to 38th Street and Cass Street in Omaha, Nebraska, and you turn yourself to look towards the Bluffs area, which is, there's a city across the river called Council Bluffs, and they look like mini mountains, kind of nice, but I was walking up there, and I got to the highest point there, and I just kept seeing an ocean front and hearing seagulls. And I'm like, what? An ocean front and seagulls? Like, what's going on here? I kept having to shake my head because I couldn't stop seeing it, and finally it went away, and then I realized, oh, something is going to happen, and I definitely felt it was going to be within my lifetime, and that happened a few times. And I think it was the summer of 2016, I had another situation where I was on a city bus along Dodge Street in Omaha, and I was heading out west, and I was just decided to start meditating, and when I woke up from my meditation, I just felt water up to my neck. And I'm like, what? And I was looking all around, and I was just surrounded by water, and there was just the tops of buildings sticking out of water. And I was trying to figure out where all this water was coming from, and I kept hearing north. So it's very interesting, and I kept seeing the city of Omaha only like tall points. There's a lot of hills in Omaha, so I think only the hills with the structures will be sticking out and won't be touched by floodwaters. Then I had a very prophetic dream. I had a couple of them actually, but the one I remember the most was I was standing on a hill on the southern edge of downtown Omaha. But at first I didn't know it was Omaha, and I just kind of, in the dream, I squinted my eyes and looked a little closer, because I'm like, it looked like I was in Chicago, because I just saw a huge waterfront, you know how the earth has that curvature, and you can't see anything beyond it, just water. And I saw a sandy beach. I'm like, what is this? And I looked a little closer, and I saw the downtown skyscraper, or the city skyline of Omaha, and I'm like, wow. It actually looked kind of nice, but still, I understood what that meant. And I think that very same year, or at least within the same month I had that dream, a friend of mine had another prophetic dream about, very similar to mine, where there was like a water edge along downtown. It was just a lot of things were flooded. But also what he experienced was he saw another skyscraper that we don't actually have, but he said it was gold and green, and he said it was just crumbling and collapsing. And I'm like, well, gold and green is typically indicative of like a finance or money, and it just reminded me of a bank. And I'm like, wow, it sounds like a financial collapse. So that wasn't my dream, that's his dream, but I have had visions of collapse in general too.
Yeah, that financial collapse is coming up more and more lately from other people in the family. They're bringing it up and feeling that it's coming. And when it's interesting too, because it's almost that I'm so programmed biblically too. I mean, as soon as I see something, I think, okay, just when they say peace and safety, or all those things are just like so in your head from church as a kid and all that. But when you look at it, it's like the economy is supposedly humming along, but we have this trade war going on, and it could branch out. And at the same time, you have everybody, well, not everybody, but so many countries like Russia, China, all the BRICS nations, India, they're starting to do their own thing. They're not depending on the dollar anymore to trade in. So it really is getting much more likely what you're saying every day.
Yeah, it's creeping around the corner. I feel a lot of people want to ask me when do you see it? And honestly, too many variables or too many things that can happen at once. But if anyone's wondering, yes, I feel it coming real quick, and that is one of the reasons why I keep hearing we all need to be prepared. If anyone's thinking of storing cash, that's great. I'm going to suggest something better that my ancestors did. I'm descendant of the Viking era, which I also have a past life in the Viking era, come to find out. What they did is they traded in silver. That was their currency. So when they were traveling, they had a bracelet of silver, and when they wanted a piece of bread to eat or what have you, a place to stay, they would cut a piece of silver off their bracelet and trade it. So when it does collapse, and it's going to, from what I'm seeing, some people are still going to want to have some type of bartering or trading, and precious metals is a safer bet than cash.
Very true.
But as another psychic shared with me, and I absolutely agreed and felt it too, is bartering. Like, everybody should start researching bartering. Trading services. If you grow tomatoes, but your neighbor grows avocados, like, hey, I'll give you 3 tomatoes for 3 avocados. What do you say? Yeah, sure, no problem. Let's share. Things like that, and the age of material possessions. The 401k and the pension and the Mercedes and the mansion. It's been over for a long time, and excuse me.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is invest in your own safety. Water filters, the life stick filters, and your bug out bags and tents, just in case. Not everybody's going to be displaced from their home, but a vast majority of people will. I know that Arizona is prepping for what I've been seeing coming for California, and part of it, yes, is going to be underwater. I think a lot more of it, I think it's going to be the fires first. They're going to displace a lot of people, but I know California is shaking up, and I know information is being hidden on that. Speaking of which, I'm glad I brought that up. Also, 2016 was a very interesting year. I started a job at a contact center in Omaha doing surveys, and after my first week there, I received a phone call from another survey company, and I had a California cell phone number at the time, and I feel like my number stays private, so I don't know how they got my phone number, but they called me, and it was a survey for FEMA, and even though I was living in Omaha, I was just kind of curious to know what they had to say, and I kept hearing, you need to listen to this, stay on the line. That's what my guides were telling me at the time, and so I did. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll take the survey. And one of the questions they wanted to know is, say, in the event of such and such natural disasters, how prepared are you to evacuate the city? I told them I lived in Los Angeles, and they asked me what type of disasters am I expecting. I didn't tell her I'm a psychic, and then I kept seeing, a lot of flooding, mass land movements flowing into the ocean. So I kind of gave her little tidbits of what I was expecting, and then really wanted my income. And at the time, I wasn't sure why, but I think they were trying to gauge to see how many low-income people were not going to be able to leave the city or the state of California. But I just thought that was very weird that just after I started working for a survey call center, that I got a survey call for the first time in my life.
Yeah, right. It's
just the synchronicity of it.
We were
But
talking.
it tells me that they're preparing. They understand something's happening. They're not telling the people.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure, and we've seen like so many. I was sharing in a different video a couple of videos ago about all that talk about the Walmarts and the tunnels underneath. And honestly, I didn't want to think about it, didn't want to really go into it. And the fact that they're going to be set up as FEMA camps. And then it comes out that there's a mainstream article talking about, the immigrant children being kept there, basically on, never-ending detention, just sitting there. And they're, some of them are being used as camps already. And then another subscriber sent me something that showed that, do you know that part of the whole Walmart plan when they were first coming out was having underground like rail systems, underground methods of transporting in and out goods, which blew me away, so we talk about like, Google for one and Facebook for another, being basically just tools of Big Brother. And then, perhaps the whole time Walmart's been a plant too, to be a tool for Big Brother. And that's all really scary thoughts.
I could see your point. I think it's really how you look at it. I mean, you can either go along with that, with them to get into the Walmart concentration camps, which I do feel do exist. I remember first seeing it too, and I was a little skeptical. I'm like, because there is a lot of disinformation on YouTube and various places, but I just kept feeling like there is something to it. There really is, and it was a very eerie feeling. And if anybody's wondering, I just heard somebody is thinking about the Denver International Airport. Yes, there is an underground city being constructed there. In fact, there on public record, there is a construction company in Omaha who has been contracted to help with its construction there as well. I like Denver. There are some cool places, but there's a very eerie black blanket I feel sitting over that city every time I go in there. I've been in the Denver International Airport. It is just, I wouldn't even say it's low vibration. It's just a chilling vibration. No, the murals aren't there anymore, but that Mustang statue with the red eyes is still there, and I believe the Anubis statue is still there. I don't think they understand who Anubis really is. But yeah, there's weird stuff going on there. I had to take a flight out of Denver one time. There is a tunnel going underground. I think the initial part of the tunnel is just a service tunnel for the trains. And they bring you from the entrance to the terminals, but I just felt that it goes down even further, and it spreads out even wider the further down you go. A shaman friend of mine also had to take a flight out of there, and he was delayed, and he had to roam around the airport for a while, and he came across a door, and above it said the entrance to Hades. I thought that was very interesting, but didn't surprise me.
I wouldn't be surprised with that either. And then somebody else told me now, and I don't know how true it is, that there's a statue of Baphomet there. Is that true? Have you heard that?
I have not heard that, and I'd like to see that. I'm not sure about that. I think they're confusing that. They might be confusing that with Anubis. There is a statue of Anubis there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Anubis I could see. I mean, it's still coming out of the mythology, but Baphomet would be like a complete in your face, even more.
Right.
Because it is pretty complete in your face.
I think there'd be a little too much commotion on that. I know they've been drawing attention, but I don't think they want too much attention. Because, the entities at work here on this physical plane, they'll put it out in plain sight to a point where you can't even notice it. Or you'll just shrug your shoulders at it. And I think the Baphomet would be too much. But who knows? I mean, I know that they have contracted to have certain art pieces come through the airport from time to time. Maybe it was there for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not feeling that's what's there right now. But honestly, and if anyone's curious, they think they want to go run to the bunker, Endeavor International, when the SHIT hits the fan, it's not a good idea. I will promise you that, because they just paid for their own burial, the government. If you think about the mountains, how do they form? Well, land masses, on top of land masses, and to push everything up. Well, when the giant earthquakes happen, it'll drop everything right back down if it wants to. I do see the mountains, the Rocky Mountains, still being up, but that could change, because Yellowstone is becoming very active, and I had a very profound vision of that as well, where I was standing somewhere in Nebraska looking west, and I just saw a giant black cloud coming from the northwest. And of course there's lightning with it, and I looked a little closer in my vision, and I saw that it was an ash cloud, and then I realized, or felt, that it was coming from Yellowstone. And that was my indication that yes, it's absolutely going to blow, and I was kind of shown the trajectory of all the ash, and it comes down past Denver. It kind of loops up, and part of it will reach Omaha, Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, North Dakota, I think, too. That's just what I saw at the time. That could change. That could get even wider. Because it is a massive volcano. And, another thing I'm being reminded to tell people is, do not rely... Oh, sorry, go ahead. Hello?
Yep, you're still here.
Oh, okay, there's some interference there. Do not rely on reporting agencies or government to tell you when everything's going down. You're going to get little tidbits, but they're going to lie about it.
Right.
And they're going to lie about lying about it. So this is the time, again, to be alert and aware. Stay in tune. Speak with your guides. Make sure you're grounding yourself, keeping those chakras as clear as possible. And your diet will impact that too. Like, a lot of people eat meat, and I understand a lot of people are conditioned, well, we need meat, you need it every night, and you really don't, because they say it's for protein, and unfortunately, that was a lie given to us by people who wanted to make money off their cattle and on their animals. And, how do you think the animals get their protein? Well, they get it from plants. But anyway, point being, I encourage and empower everybody to stick to a diet of whole, raw foods, fruits and vegetables as much as possible. Some of them you might have to cook depending on your GI issues. I'm hearing one person listening has some trouble with carrots. That's okay. You can lightly boil them, soften them up, and I think you'll do better than just eating them raw. But anyway,
all good thoughts, and one of the things I had an ex-girlfriend that was a Seventh-day Adventist, and I had seen it in the Bible before as well, but of course she was brought up with it, so she was brought up as a vegetarian, and so it's I've gone back to it just the other day. I was just reading again, because in Genesis, it does say Genesis, the first chapter 1:29, it does talk that basically it says that our food is to be every herb-bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth, every tree, in which the fruit of the tree yielding seed, to it you shall be, or it shall be for you meat. And so the herbs are to be our medicine, and the fruits of these trees, and basically we're supposed to be vegetarian according to the original part of Genesis. It's not until after the fall that the meat thing comes in. So I do think there's a correlation, because Seventh-day Adventists typically live 7 years longer on average than a typical Christian. So there's something to it, and it does affect your consciousness as well. It really does.
Yes, it does.
I mean, I know when I was lifting a lot younger, and trying to just simply push as much weight as possible, and I would eat meat, and I know I was taking in non-organic meat in those days. So it was probably a lot of steroids, a lot of hormones, a lot of antibiotics, just totally unhealthy for you. It did make me more aggressive, and I was physically stronger from the amount I could lift. But at the same time, it wasn't heart healthy. It wasn't going to help my longevity. It wasn't helping me spiritually as well.
Absolutely. And I actually grew up in the Seventh-day Adventist church for a long time too, and it is true. A lot of times, many of them tend to live about 7 years longer because of the diet they practice. And I'm not much for Christianity, though I have so much respect, profound respect for Jesus, who to me is one of the greatest mystics that ever walked the planet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back to Jesus here in a moment. From what I've channeled and what I've talked to him about, what I found out about him, I'll tell you in a minute. But what I learned about the Seventh-day Adventists is they really do value health and taking care of your temple. So that is what I really got out of that, is in addition to not worshiping idols, and it wasn't because of anything bad, it's that they were trying to encourage you to channel your thoughts and your prayers to source.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to show you this is what I got from it. They're trying to show you have the power to speak to source directly. You don't need to sit in front of a cross, and which is also a pagan symbol, and I don't understand why people, and I'm not judging anybody, I don't understand why people want to worship, a piece of wood that, a mystic died on. To me, that always looks like a trophy for the Romans. That is a whole other topic for a whole other day. I had many years to think about that one and research that one. Anyway. So the Adventists, they can be pretty cool, but at the same time, the church I went to, everybody seemed very sad. So I didn't really care for that, but I wanted to touch base on Jesus. So I know there are some psychics, let's say right now, they kind of tune in and realize what I am. Yes, I am a witchcraft practitioner. I'm not a Wiccan. I have been a witch my entire life. It runs in the family and throughout past lives. Witchcraft has nothing to do with worshiping the devil, sacrificing babies. That is purely Hollywood propaganda. There are some people who think that's cool now because of what they saw in the movies, and now they think that's what witchcraft is all about, and now they want to do that, and that's just horrible. Witchcraft has everything to do with recognizing Mother Earth and having respect for her, and also having respect for the forces in the universe and source, so on and so forth. And to touch base on the Jesus situation, Jesus really was probably one of the greatest witches to walk the planet. All the work he does really mirrors that practice. You can call it magic, energy work, what have you. The time he took, there's in the Bible, it states that time he wasn't there from he was a teen till in his 30s. Was that correct?
Yeah, basically from 12 until 29, there's nothing. So yeah.
Well, from what he told me, because that was the time he took to work on his personal alchemy. So yeah, I think there was a lot of traveling involved, but I don't think that what he did for himself to work on the alchemy, practice his own magic or his own energy work, I think it was purposely not recorded. I think there were people that knew about it, but it just was not recorded because that goes against, Christian beliefs. You don't do that. But, if you speak to the Orthodox Jewish believers, a lot of them don't have a good view on Jesus. They kind of refer to him, if you will, excuse my terminology, like a perverted wizard. They call him a womanizer and a wizard, basically. And I'm like, why would the Jews call him a wizard? I'm like, because he did energy work. He was a witch.
Yeah.
I call him a witch. You can call him a wizard, a warlock, whatever. But
and you get into the Reiki end of it, and I have trained many people and taken many people through Reiki level 1, 2, 3 up to master, and master teacher even, and so many people, when they go into it, they discover that Jesus used energy work, like you said, and many view it as being Reiki, and there's some traditions in Reiki that view that Reiki is the actual system that he was using. And if you know Dr. Gosh, I'm forgetting my mind sometimes, too much chemtrails, but basically I know, right? The founder of Reiki himself was actually a monk, but also was very, very friendly to the Christian beliefs, as are so many. And that's the thing in the East, is that they'll embrace and take on other things that are beautiful and work as well, and not necessarily condemn it and think it's like satanic at all. And that's part of the problem with fundamentalism. But I think that's been really hammered into people, and it really all stems from the Catholic Church. And as we know, the burning times, and the Inquisition. My God, how many people were killed? And because supposedly of blasphemy. Blasphemy. That word blasphemy has been used to send people to their deaths time and time again, and it just simply is. There are differences of opinion, viewing things in different ways. But the Catholic Church, again, realized what they were doing. They were trying to keep their empire together. So they needed a form of Christianity that they could use to their benefit to control the minds and the hearts of people. And when we see the Nag Hammadi and the Gnostic texts, it's a totally different picture that emerges. Most people's favorite gospel, as far as the canonical ones, is the Gospel of John, and that one's very, very different than the other ones. It has a different energy to it, and it's much more like a book that comes from the Essenes, a book that comes from the Gnostics. In which case, in many traditions as well, like you were alluding to, there's many traditions that believe totally that Jesus and Mary were a couple. Not Mother Mary, but Mary Magdalene. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we're made to think that there's something wrong with that. And
right, absolutely. And I've had people tell me, "Oh, no, that can't be. Jesus couldn't do that because he's pure." I'm like, no. Just because you fall in love with somebody, it doesn't make you impure. Like, no, it's because if you're pure, you don't have sex. I'm like, what's so impure about sex? I mean, to me, sex can be, I'm going to highlight that, can be a true act, a physical act of expressing love towards your partner. Or there are other people who prefer to have many partners, and you know what? Good for you. I mean, please be safe. I love you, care about you, just be safe, please. No judgment. Anyway, I think I definitely felt that Jesus and Mary were a couple, and I think if I look at it with the witching mindset, it's showing the balance of the feminine and the masculine.
yes,
And she did a lot of work with him. And the most beautiful aspect of the relationship is that, yes, before they met, she was a promiscuous woman, from what I saw, but that wasn't necessarily her fault. It had a lot to do with her upbringing and the conditions she was given and the abuse she was given. But Jesus loved her anyway and worked with her and helped her, and then they worked with each other and healed each other. and they fall in love, and I think that is just beautiful that you could love somebody that much. You could see past all of that because that's in her past,
Right.
So I find beauty in the relationship. I definitely felt it is true. As far as Jesus having a kid, I've had impressions, but I have not received 100% confirmation. And I do like that movie, The Da Vinci Code. I think that puts a really cool spin on things.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it was very, very. For many people, it was like totally like they had no clue ever about any of that. But yeah, there's a lot of things that are hidden, and so like some say, oh, the Book of Enoch, and some will say, well, the Book of Enoch was heretical. Well, what's heretical? It's what the Catholic Church tells you is heretical because they don't want you knowing the truth. That's why they call it heretical, is because they want to keep you in the dark, and the people that can't see that, it's just showing that that fear is really stuck in you, and that fear is what holds us into the lower vibrations. So we need to let that go.
That is another thing I keep being asked to share with people, as you've shared before, is it's way past the time to let go of fear. It's not too late to do it, but it's way past the time. It's just fear. It truly is an illusion. I'm not saying people don't experience fear, but it is an illusion. We're fearful. People tend to be fearful of scenarios that haven't even happened and probably won't happen. Though we do live at a time of great manifestation, so just be careful about your thoughts. Or not careful. I'd be mindful.
Yes.
Mindful of my choice of words here, but. You're absolutely right. The Catholic Church absolutely has kept people in fear. They are hiding information. They do have an archive. Honestly, you don't need to be a psychic to know that. Just look at their behavior. They are hiding information. They've taken parts of the Bible out and put in what they wanted, and so on and so forth. And it's all about control, and it is an extension of the Roman Empire, which didn't die. It's in three sectors now. It's in the religious center, financial center, and military. Religious being the Vatican, financial being London, England, but not like the city of London. There's another city within inside of London called London, and that's the financial ruling center of the world. That's where a lot of marketeers go for their education too. In Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, which is technically not a legal entity of the United States, is the military center of the world.
Yeah.
And if you notice, all three centers have that similar dome-shaped building. I forgot what they call that. But all three cities have it, and all based off Roman architecture. That told me a lot right there.
For sure, yeah, that's so dead on. It's so dead on, because the Roman Empire never stopped. It's just transmuted, and even before, I think the Roman Empire. I think we could go all the way back to the Sumerians, and I think it comes back to the bloodlines of the gods, quote unquote, and their offspring, that the blue bloods. There's a reason why. I mean, why do we even think of the concept of kingship? That's been given to us by the ruling, quote-unquote, gods, which are not gods at all. They're just, they're other entities. That's all it is.
Yeah, and that just brings me to Yahweh or Yahweh, who, that is not God's name. I've always felt that God is, to me, more than anything, a dark goddess, and just so people are aware, darkness is not the same as evil or negative. Darkness is the mystery. All light stems from the darkness, and you cannot have light without darkness. All life extends or builds from darkness. Now, just for an example, if you look at the soil in the ground, think of yourself as just this little seed. The soil represents the darkness, and that seed cannot grow without the darkness. And in the darkness, it is mystery. In the soil, it's very mysterious. You don't know what's there. There's all kinds of creepy, crawly critters, and you get stepped on, rained on, flooded, and God knows what. Then all of a sudden you start sprouting, and you become strong, and you break through the top of that soil, then all of a sudden you're that seed of light that, thrived in the darkness, now you're thriving in light. And it's just a cycle.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess you could say that the Vatican has kind of kept us in a type of darkness. They've kept us in a mystery, a type of wonder, where we just don't know, or we're oblivious, and some people are just ignorant because they don't want to let go of their conditioning. And honestly, I feel sad for those people, and I wish them well. But I forgot the point I was driving at here. But,
I think that it's been so interwoven, and besides what we've shared with the public, Asia and I have gone and done other things and gone deeper, and there's some stuff we haven't quite shared, and then there's some stuff I've gotten on my own as well, and as well as from other sources and just research. But basically, all these things that we have, they're so purposefully jumbled up, and it's almost to the point where you really can't get the truth out of the lies, or see the lies. It's like you can't see the forest for the trees, because there's so much distraction all around it. And somebody had brought up the book of Enoch too. And the book of Enoch it's quoted by other books that are in the Bible as a source. So obviously people used it as a source. But perhaps even the book of Enoch is tainted and twisted in order to keep us confused. It's obviously that way with the Bible, and also other things as well. We see what they do with politics, and they just split us right down the middle, and they want us to be split down the middle. They don't want people to going kind of in the middle, of their two dichotomies. The left, you got to be either a leftist or a rightist. You got to be a conservative or a liberal, a Democrat, Republican. They really,
right.
if they saw, like, say, a Libertarian Party or a Green Party or some sort of People's Party come in, and really start to gain steam, they would immediately, for one, bribe those people, which I think I told you too, Andrew, before, that the Illuminati reached out to me, and basically were going to send me to a suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, to be trained under one of their people. I would have somebody that would be my mentor, would go through training, and all my needs would be taken care of. And I turned them down, and then have been warned since then, and in different ways, verbally, as well as through an apparent act once that was pretty scary, that hit right at home. But that's what they'll do to anybody coming up as well, and so it's going to take a strong group of special people to get past that. We really have to bind together to get past that darkness.
And we have. I would say we don't have to do anything, but to me, it is wise to help one another. So if you see somebody who's getting ready to go down that path and go the reverse way that they should go, encourage them. Avoid getting upset with them. Have compassion and say, hey sister, hey brother, I'm sorry, it's not a good path. Let me show you, please. And staying calm, showing compassion and understanding. They're going to have their reasons for wanting to go down that path. And just listen to them, and then ask them, hey, can I show you my side? Can I show you this to better help the situation? Getting angry, getting fired up over things this time, it's not going to help matters at all.
Yeah. I agree totally.
And, even with politicians, honestly, I'm not a Christian, I'm not Jewish, but I have profound respect for Jesus, because he really did teach one of the most advanced messages this planet has ever heard of, and it's love. And with love comes non-judgment, and also having compassion, and so on and so forth. So you don't have to be a Christian to understand that message. And so even when it comes to a politician, even when this entire system collapses, there might be some politicians standing there in the rubble and saying, geez, what happened? I thought it was going to rule the world, and so on and so forth. And, we can all approach that person and say, hey, yeah, you did some terrible things, or you did some things that we perceive as terrible, but we forgive you anyway. And we're going to ask that you please don't do that again, and we want to help you. You can do that. You can change somebody's heart with that type of love, and hopefully that person will go with you and follow that and accept your forgiveness.
See, I view things as that Buddhism is one of those things that's more of a philosophy than a religion, and so in some ways I view true Christianity to be similar, and that it's anybody that is really a Christian is somebody that just simply follows what Jesus taught, which is really the path of love and peace. And so, that's kind of how I view it. So in my mind, I could be a Buddhist because I recognize that this 3D reality is all Maya, it's all illusion. And then yet I'm still a Taoist because I recognize that we live in a world, in this 3D world, that is governed by duality, and duality is what keeps everything in motion. The interplay between the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and all the little subsets of energy that goes down, breaking down below that. And yet there's a greater whole which is unknowable, and that's kind of how I view Source, as as a Taoist does, which is that the Tao, or if you want to say, exchange God or Source for that word Tao, because that's what it is. The Tao that can be named, the Tao that can be labeled, is not the true Tao, because the Tao cannot be, it's limitless. It can't be named, it can't be labeled. So when we delve into Gnosticism, we start talking about limitless light, Ein Sof Or. And that gets into the Kabbalah, and that gets into the Hebrew mysticism as well. And that's really how I view it. So in a sense, I feel, I am Buddhist, I am Taoist, I am also Christian in the sense that I believe in Christ's teachings. I don't believe in the dogma that the church gave us, but I do believe in the teachings that were given us, and I believe in the knowledge that Buddha showed. I think that he showed the way to get out of the illusion of this world, while Christ showed us the way to lift up each other and to be lifted up. The path, both of them are showing us paths of ascension. And so I feel like those are two of the great teachers of this Piscean age. And now we're heading into a different age. It's going to be an age of unity, where we're starting to recognize the core truths in all the systems, and we'll get rid of the crap that has kept us separated, and just really actually embrace the proper teachings and actually live those teachings, instead of just simply saying, you're going to hell, or you have the wrong path, or condemning each other. We need to just stop condemning and just lift each other up, as they showed. Both of them showed.
That's absolutely right. Like you said, we definitely need to stop condemning, because one, it doesn't help matters. It doesn't encourage others to be better than what they are, or grow from that low energy that they are in, and help bring them into a higher vibration. But just love is the answer. And for those who are listening who may disagree, I respect your point of view. I can hear those thoughts, and just let you know, I love you. It's unconditional.
That's beautiful. That is exactly perfect. And we're going to be going to break, but thank you for joining me this first hour, Andrew. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, no problem. Great talking with you. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you so much. Namaste, brother.
Namaste.
Okay, you did have a caller sitting here, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure they're going to be coming back in now.
They're still sitting there.
I'm here.
Yeah, I typed it into the Skype chat there for you.
Yeah, I have a habit of, a lot of times when I'm talking, I end up closing my eyes and going off into a different world. So who do I have with me here?
Hello?
Hi. Yes, you have Michael. We're not live yet. We're on a break, but we'll be coming back in a moment. So what?
Hey, Mike. Hey, Mike. It's KJ from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn.
Hey, how you doing?
Great. We spoke about a week ago, I believe.
Yep, I do remember. How you doing, KJ? Doing good up there?
I'm doing great. Looks like you got a much better phone connection working now, too.
Yes. Yeah, everything seems to be good over here.
Good.
Have you ever talked to Paul Davies?
Yes, I have.
I meant Michael there.
Oh, have I? No, I haven't.
Yeah, he done a documentary called Jesus in India.
Oh, I love that. That's really good stuff, and so important too, because so many people are not aware of that.
He actually proved that he was there.
I believe he was too. Are we on live now, Ahmad?
No. I'm watching it. We got a couple minutes yet.
Okay, good.
I can actually go in there and watch it.
Okay.
That's one perk about being the manager.
Did you say that Jesus was in India?
Yeah, him and Mary.
I would imagine.
His mother.
I would imagine Jesus was just about anywhere Jesus felt he wanted or needed to be.
Well, a lot of his teachings actually came from the Middle East teachings.
Yes, I mean, as a true Christian in every sense, will definitely testify to that. I would have the belief that that is very possible, and that I don't close myself off. I mean, I was listening to that last caller, and I find people that were kind of raised in organized religion have this very odd and distorted view, and where they wind up because of that. It just, like I said, I was very fortunate. I wasn't indoctrinated as a child. So,
3 seconds before I got to pull it in.
Right.
For some reason, I don't understand why I'm not hearing it, but I'm not even able to hear it. So usually it's blaring away on this thing. I got kicked off the air off the internet just before the break. There, did you see me disappear?
Yeah, I was wondering what was up.
Usually when somebody's on the phone and that happens, they get booted too. I was trying to hurry up and get back.
Yeah, the Saint Issa, I-S-S-A, that's the legend in India of Jesus. That probably was Jesus.
All right, here we go. I got to pull it in.
Turn you to your host.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. And right now we have with us KJ. Welcome aboard, KJ.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to hear you again.
Yeah, it's great to be on, especially on a much better phone connection.
Definitely. So what's on your mind today?
I mean, a few things, obviously. I was listening to the last caller, and I would just like to say, now, I consider myself a Christian. I consider myself an adult Christian, meaning that, like I said, I was never indoctrinated as a child. Thank God. My mom worked 3 jobs raising 3 kids with no dad in the house. So she didn't have much time to drag us off to a Catholic church to be told that we're all going to hell for doing everything basically that most people just naturally want to do, especially as children. But I have to say that I find personally, and I think the key is people tend to close themselves off. Free will is really what, your energy and what your existence is about. And I find that a lot of people that were raised in certain forms of organized religion tend to have a very distorted view of what Jesus was, is. You know, everybody has an opinion, and you know what we say about opinions. You know, it's like, you know, elbows and behinds. Everyone's got them, and everyone else's stinks. So, you know, it kind of, I kind of bad in a sense for a lot of people, because I think the worst thing you can do is close yourself off to possibility. And that means all things. It could mean your perception of reality, your perception of what something from the past has meant. You know, and I think what it does is it limits you. Now, you know, as an example, I myself have been kind of a free-range child my whole life. Again, going back to the fact that, you know, my mom worked 3 jobs raising 3 kids, so I was pretty much one of those free-range humans that pretty much raised myself and learned things on my own, and I felt because of that, it gave me such a great advantage, because it gave me the ability to learn about things from my own perspective as compared to being indoctrinated or talked to or spoken to, especially in most cases spoken down to or forced upon with, you know, thoughts and concepts and ideas that really are of other people making or, you know, premise. So I think it's just very key that, you know, to be truly enlightened and to be truly open to the realm of possibility of what it means to be not only a Christian, but just a human being in the world we live in. It's really important to not, I mean, to really, to judge or to guess or to think about whether it was Jesus, whether it's anything, is you're missing the point. Jesus is love, you know, and if you're a true Christian, at least as far as how I view things and how I live my life and how it's obvious it's worked well for me. At 52, I've pretty much, like I said, I've been on my own mostly all my life. I've had to rely on myself and my wits and my willing of things to happen in my life. Essentially, nobody was there to do or give me anything, and I had to pretty much make it happen, which my friends say that's my middle name. And I feel the reason I was able to be this way and to do the things I've done in my life and achieve all the things I've set out as far as what I wanted to do and to enjoy my life is because of that. And I think it's important that people, you know, don't get so caught up in the dogma or just the, you know, what has been written by others. Or, you know, like, you know, talking about the Catholic Church. I mean, come on. The Catholic Church, everybody knows, any organized religion is a business. And they, you know, they take something from that might have been, you know, a really great thing and an awesome positive thing, and then they twist it and manipulate it and use it for mind control. And most people, sadly, are sheep-like. That's why I believe even the terminology that is used so much in the Bible about shepherds and sheep and that is because, you know, most people don't free will, they don't free think, they're not, you know, I guess they're not of that frequency or level of concept as far as being able to think for themselves. And then it's just easier to kind of fall in line and kind of obviously go with the crowd and just kind of be a part of that as compared to, you know, it takes a lot of strength and ability to think for yourself and to live for yourself and to be your own real actual person and find your own way in this world.
That's just so well said, my brother, and just so well said. And one of the things I want to share is, like, in the yogic traditions as well, It's thought that the masses, and this is like out of the Hindu tradition, the masses will basically pray to the gods, and there are many, many gods, and they don't necessarily they don't think that they're any one of those gods is like necessarily the sole creator of the universe. Sometimes people will think that, you know, in a mistaken way. But like the yogis that really, really discipline themselves and search deeper, they know that ultimately that's just a tool. Really, you know, everything is within you, and it's getting in touch with that own divine spark within. So in that sense, they're not polytheists at all. In that sense, then they recognize it's just a tool, and some people need that. They need to have something like that to lean on. It makes them feel comfortable. It's just, you know, it's just another tool, but ultimately it's all, you have to go within for the truth. You have to go within to really find yourself. And if you just simply embrace a dogma, it's only going to take you so far, and then it starts to be limiting and controlling.
Right, and then I'm going back to also what you were saying. You know, everything is based on control, and what governments and what religions have done. What they do is they create actually alternatives, and that's how you basically, you know, divide and conquer, and that's how control is attained by governments throughout the history, religions. You know, they always have to have the alpha and the omega. There always has to be, you know, oh, this is this group, and this is what they're about. Oh, and then there's that group, and that's what they're about. And at the end of the day, as simple as it may seem, it amazes me, throughout the course of my life, it's blown my mind how easily people are just completely swayed to disliking another person, or just completely shutting them down, disregarding, not, you know, hearing whatever they have to say just because they believe what they believe. And to me, that right there is, it's like literally, it's like you're taking yourself to a point in the ground, essentially, because what you're doing is you're standing your ground, and you're like so caught up in your own process and your own belief system that, you know, essentially you're shutting yourself off to so many other possibilities and realms, because we live in a universe. You know, yes, we live on a planet, and see, again, that's what it kind of goes to as well, is people, you know, we live in a universe, okay, and then we live on a planet, and then you live in your house, and then you live in your room, so it's like these compartmentalizations. And sadly, what happens is people allow themselves to, you know, live within that constraint of that compartmentalization. And instead of, you know, realizing that you're actually a being of the universe, and that if you could just open yourself up to the, you know, the possibilities of that, and not waste your energy on such negativity, because that's how they control most people, is by getting people to essentially hate somebody for their belief system, or hate somebody for, I mean, it could be something as simple as, well, I like McDonald's, and no, I like Burger King, or I like the Yankees, no, I like Boston, you know, and it's so ridiculous that people will pigeonhole. I mean, it's like the worst form of pigeonholing, and really are, and listen, if that's what you choose to do in your life, so be it. But when you then realize why your world is so small, and maybe why you're not very happy, it's, you know, there's so many people that are nowadays on antidepressants, and millions of people. I mean, and I'll bet you that at the core of most people that are depressed, it's because they pigeonhole themselves into this, whether it's a political system, a religious belief system, and they're stuck now, and they feel like maybe I wasn't right about this, and now they're like too embarrassed to kind of admit it, or to, you know, fear of change, I think, has another aspect that people are so afraid, even though they're in a bad situation. It's like people that are in a bad marriage, and they'll say, well, I stayed because of the kids, or I stayed even though I should have got out. And it's because they fear change, I think, more than they fear what they're in. And it's sad, because then what happens is you're essentially caging yourself, and you're not going to really experience what it means to be a human being, and the ability to interact with all kinds. Now, I grew up in New York City, so I'm very blessed in the sense that I was born and raised around every variety of human being, even aliens, essentially on the planet. Because let's face it, if the aliens are going to be there, they're going to be in New York City, especially in the 1970s. So I was very lucky in that sense, that I wasn't pigeonholed. Like some people are just born and raised in these communities where everyone is like this white bread person, or everyone's a black person, or everyone's an Asian, So whereas I didn't have that, I didn't have those restraints. So even as a child, I was around, gay people, religious people, people of all ethnicities. So my palette, by the time I was even a young adult, was so vast and so wide and vapid that I had so much to pick and choose from. And that's how I kind of created my own portrait, my own idea of what the world is and what it should be for me, and how I could make it even a better world for other people. And I mean, that's what I do in my work. I had a client say to me the other day, he said, wow, it must be really great to have a job where you make people feel really good. And that's like the greatest compliment I feel that you can get as a human being, that somebody recognizes that, and that what you do in life, it's not about how much money you make, it's not about who's impressed, it's not about awards. Are you doing something to improve other people's existence and make them feel better about themselves? That, to me, is the true teaching of Christ and what he meant for us to be.
I can't agree with you more. Everything that you're saying is exactly my thoughts on things. I think you have it, in my opinion, you have it perfect. It's exactly it.
Well, there's, and trust me, I am far from perfect, brother, but I am one of those people who started out in this world in a really bad place, in a really dysfunctional family. I mean, I have no qualms telling people my story. Very abusive situation. I went through it all. There's the old cliche, that of which that doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. It makes you stronger, but you know what? It also makes you wiser. And, once you get through the anger phase, and once you get through the self-abusive phase, and hopefully you continue in those phases with your growth, and then you get to the point where you become empathetic. And that's where, thankfully, I find myself at 52, and I'm able to see through all those things that happen. Because unfortunately, what happens to a lot of people is, they're abused when they're young, and unfortunately, they may be abused one time or even 5 times, but then they wind up abusing themselves 10 million times till the day they die. So they never get out of that cycle of abuse. And it's like, what somebody might have done to you when you were young is bad, but now you've just continued their work by doing it to yourself. So it's so important to do that work too, especially for people that have gone through abuse and pain and things of that nature. Now, how I was able to do it, that is my bless. I always say I'm very lucky. People used to say I'm lucky. And at a certain point, I realized in my life, you know what? You can only be so lucky. At a certain point, you're blessed. And being blessed, I feel then it's important once you become blessed and you realize that, then you should return the blessing and help other people and do things for other people. I do a lot of community work where I live, and I find with each thing that I do, no matter what it is, then it comes back to me through my business and through other positive things, and I think that's really what Christ wanted us all to kind of do and perform. You know, it could be as simple as, you know, the simplest little gesture, or it could be a huge thing. It doesn't really matter what it is. But I think if you want to feel good about yourself, and getting back to the whole thing about people that are depressed, because that is a vicious cycle, it's important to try to to do things, not only for yourself, obviously, which makes you feel good, but to, you know, find a way to help people that maybe are not in such a good place as you are, and then that brings them up, you know, and I think that's important. I call it doing God's work. And it's just, it works for me. I find it to be, you know, energized, and it makes me feel really good when I'm doing things to help people. You know, I show people, like, you know, I grow vegetables and things, and people are like, you know, they're like dumbstruck, and I'm like, wow, I kind of feel bad because I've been doing this all my life. It's really not rocket science. But it's great that once you get people past their fear of doing something, because people are so afraid of failure, and it's horrible how people get so caught up with the ego and their fear of failing or their fear of embarrassment. And once you let that go, trust me, you know, you can achieve anything and everything you set your mind to. Like I said, I willed everything that's ever occurred in the course of my life. I've never had any financial help from anyone, even my family. I've been on my own since I was 17 years old. And, you know, with just a good work ethic and the ability to will things to happen, anything is possible in this world.
It is. Yeah, you feel like such an amazing brother. Actually, you feel so similar to a couple of my best friends that have had your vibration, your outlook, and everything. And you know, I'm thinking about some things in which society conditions us, and we don't even recognize the conditioning. And one of them is, from that religious point of view, the whole concept of sin is basically that which creates this internal pressure on yourself. You know, for one, it's feelings of not being good enough. That's brought and pounded into us. You know, that you're a sinner. You know, you're born into the world. Your birth is your first sin. You know, you were conceived in sin. And so this is one of the things that messes people up more than anything. It's one of the worst philosophies out there. And you know, it's funny too, because I mean, I'll share with you guys, I've gone through marriage counseling in the past, and I've had counselors that said to me, the ones that are the worst are the people that come out of the Catholic tradition, which is what I was brought up with. And it's because we're told how worthless we are right from the start. Hey, you were born. You are a sinner, so you're worthless. And there's no reason for you to live, but God's going to let you live just as long as you know, constantly give your 10% to the church, tithe, realize how worthless you are, and we'll forgive you. You know, go talk to the priest, and he'll make you absolved. You know, it's talk about mind control. Talk about, you know. And talk about inflicting those negative emotions on somebody that's going to damage them and cause them to have to go through so much counseling to get to the point where they could have a good relationship. And, you know, I'm very open and transparent with you guys, and I've told you what's going on in my life. And really, you know, there was definitely damage done from, you know, Catholicism, being brought up along those lines, and then, you know, going into other forms of brainwashing and conditioning. And I almost went into the military as a kid because my best friend was, and that would not have been my path, you know, at all, because I'm totally peace and I'm not militaristic, and that's another mindset in which they condition us. And think about what the military does to people. And I think so many people want to go into the military because they feel they're doing something so good, you know, for their you know, brethren and stuff. But when they get you in there, they break you down and totally condition you. and pump you now with all these things we don't even know what they're pumping into them. All these different shots, inoculations. And then look what happens to these poor people when they go serve and come back. They're a mess, and
they're traumatized.
They're so traumatized. So look at what the system is doing to people, in so many different ways.
Yeah. Can I on that? And I'm an open book. I'm one of those people that you want to know. Can you handle the truth? Okay, I'll tell you the truth. It's funny you say that about the military. Now, when I was growing up, again, I was from a very poor family, and so I thought, I wanted to go to culinary school because I wanted to be a chef, and the only way I could get the money to go to school was I'd have to join the military. And this is right out of high school. So I signed up, I joined the Army, 86 born. I get in there, okay? Now, I grew up very low self-esteem because I was just raised, by, like I said, very abusive, neglectful type of situation. So I thought that this would be the only way I'd be able to do this. And when I got in there, I found out, and I just how smart I was, and just how I was around these people that I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. What can I do to get out of this? And only by the grace of God and my sheer cunning, I was able to actually get out of the military.
There you go.
So you want to talk about willing. I mean, I'm one of those people that willed my way in and I willed my way out before graduating basic training. I was very lucky and I pulled it off. But yeah, that was my first taste of indoctrination and what that whole, thing is about. And it was sad to see so many guys just fall into lockstep and just, but like I said, some people just kind of, that's their thing. So, and they're just willing to do that. I knew from that point that was not where I wanted to be or where I needed to be. And thank God I was able to get out. And because if I didn't get out, who knows what would have happened to me, and I would have not gone on the path that I obviously put myself on once getting out of that situation. And it's funny because people to this day always that's like a story. They always say, how did you get out of the Army? Like, how did you? Because it's pretty rare. But I was very fortunate because what had happened is I went in because I said I wanted to be a cook, and what had happened is the people who signed me up, they were deceitful, and they didn't really tell me what I was going into. So they said I was just going to be a cook, and I was just going to go through a basic set of training, and they wound up putting me into 82nd Airborne Ranger training, which is insanity. And it was the last thing I wanted to be a part of. And so I was very fortunate because of a legal loophole in the contract that I had signed with them that they kind of deceived me. And so I was able to get out.
Well, that's good.
But thank God for that. Yeah, I was very lucky. And then I just set out on my own right after that. And, music is my thing. So, and I remember I spoke to you the last time about frequency. And we're all living, the planet is frequencies. And that's why music is such a big thing. People don't really even understand the constraint or the concept of what these frequencies are and how music plays a bigger role in everything on this planet than what most people, most people just think of a song and they tap their toe and and they go about their day, but it's so much more. There's so much more to the whole science of frequencies, tones, notes, And that's the thing. So I was, professional DJ for about 25 years, and I got to travel all around the world, which was awesome because then I get to meet people from different places, different cultures, different towns, cities. I got to live in Japan for 5 years. So because of that, again, it gave me, again, a wider palette. Gave me a greater understanding of people's concepts of what is God, what is Jesus, what is religion, what is politics, and I've always been one of those people who I take it in, but I don't let it absorb. And I think that's the key, is it's good to take in information, but don't let it sink into you. Don't let it stain you or make you get kind of caught up in any one realm. And I think that's what happens to a lot of people. Like, I know a lot of people that got into being Buddhists, that were kind of raised a certain way. And I'm not knocking Buddhism, but I'm just saying, like, people, they go from extremes, so they kind of attach themselves, and then they become kind of this walking, talking cliche, what it is to be a Buddhist, or like, we'd say a hippie, or now it's hipster, and people kind of become this kind of caricature, and then in that sense, you could be serious about what it is you're into, but because you allow the physicality and the adornments of, being whatever it is you claim to be, people then don't take you seriously. They kind of give it like a little wink and a nod and a laugh. Oh, he's a Buddhist now, or oh, he's this, or and it's unfortunate. Because I think it's best to really not show. I always say, don't show all your cards.
Yeah, I think you're right on. You got it so right there. And as soon as we label ourselves, we stop our growth. So as soon as as soon as you say, okay, I am just, like you said, just a Buddhist. Well, now you're in a box.
Right.
So and if you say, okay, well, I'm a Christian. You're in a box in a way, and especially if you're going to say, well, I'm a Baptist or I'm Catholic or what have you. If your perception of being a Christian is what we discussed before, and it's simply somebody that follows the path of love, that's one thing, and but it's there shouldn't be a need to necessarily label ourselves, but in this dualistic world, and especially with people that want to control us. They want us to label ourselves. They want us to become that Democrat, become that Republican.
They're dying. They're dying for you to self-identify.
Yep.
Once you self-identify with anything, listen, like I said, I'm a Christian because I believe in Christ, teaching of Christ. But that's not just like anybody who knows me. They don't say, oh, there's KJ the Christian. You know what they say? There's KJ. Because they know me as a guy who plays music. They know me as a guy who grows tomatoes. They know me as a guy who rescues stray cats. They know me as a guy who helps his neighbors, who paints murals, who plants flowers on his block, so it's like they know for my business what I do, so that way it's a multifaceted being, and that's what I want people to think of me. And the only way you really, there's a lot of people out there who claim to be Christian or they claim to be, a religious person, and then they say it in a sense like, oh, I'm holier than thou. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. But what does that really mean? How can you differentiate yourself from just somebody who's not? And what we say is you have to do the work. So, like, you have to do something to make people. I mean, if you want to get people to kind of understand what it is, now, I don't care. I don't want followers. I don't want nobody following my world. I'm on my own path. I could care less. If you want to do what you do, God bless you. I love you, brother. All I ask is just be good at whatever it is you're doing, be a good person. But the last thing I want is when people ask me advice, oh, well, how did you do this? Listen, I do what I do. You're fully capable of doing exactly whatever it is you want to do. But you can't follow my path. I didn't follow anyone else's path. The one thing I certainly made sure I didn't do is I didn't make the same mistakes that my family made, whether it was my family, my parents, my brother, my sister, because I saw what happens when you make mistakes or you fall into these pitfalls of life. So at least that was kind of a good roadmap. It's more about what not to do than what to do is the advice I would give people. And that way you can at least, no matter what you go through, we all have ups and downs. You're going to have failures, you're going to have successes. But at least when you're on your own path and you're doing it in your own way, it's so much more reward when you succeed at something, knowing that you've done it completely of your own fruition and your own way.
That's so true. And, thank you so much for joining me again. It was a great call, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. And, we're definitely on the same page, my brother. Thank you so much for calling in again.
You got it, brother. You have a great day, and God bless all. Love you all. Peace, and have a, summer's coming around the corner, so let's enjoy it while we can. Who knows how long we have left on this spinning globe.
Definitely, my friend. Namaste.
Namaste, brother.
Take care. So, that was TJ. That was a wonderful call. Definitely, I would say he's definitely a pretty enlightened being there. Love everything that he shared with us. And so we have an opening. Anybody want to give us a call in? 229-299-5320. Give a call. Let us know what you guys are thinking. There's so much going on. I don't know if you guys have checked out the YouTubes from today. As was the case before, I mean, it seems like the entire world is flooding, getting ready for another Noah's flood. It's just been one thing after another. In India, we have like 550,000 people suffering, many of them being displaced and forced to move because of the flooding that's been over there. We've seen dust storms over there that have killed people. We've seen hailstorms that have killed hundreds of animals and also killed people as well. Not just there, there's flooding over in Myanmar. There's flooding all over the U.S. Did you see the flooding up in Michigan and Wisconsin? It's just insane. I mean, whole streets are just getting totally demolished, just ripped apart, torn to shreds, and just disappearing. It's incredible what's going on. And the flooding that we're seeing in all these different locations, truthfully, it did come to me. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, because it's all these different areas all over the U.S., also all over the whole globe. It's just incredible. Maybe we haven't had that 8.0 earthquake, that 9.0 earthquake. We haven't seen a tsunami, come and wipe things out. Some of the things we're really fearing. We haven't had Yellowstone go off. We haven't had the New Madrid go off. But we've been hitting with this insane amount of flooding going on all over the world that is displacing tens and hundreds of thousands of people now. Yeah, the flooding in Maryland, the flooding in D.C., Texas, everywhere, it pretty much, besides where the wildfires are. But now that we got the remnants of Tropical Storm Bud there, helping with the fire, at least, containing that. We've seen bizarre stuff with the USGS, and 10 days in a row now, 5.3 eruption, 10 days in a row. I mean, is there anywhere we could place a bet on that? Let's put down some money on a 5.3 eruption tomorrow, in Hawaii. We could all make money if we did that. If somebody would lay us odds on that, we'd clean up, because it's something that the USGS is just putting out there. And for what reason? Why are they trying to hide that? Whatever's going on there, I don't know. Or is this completely man-made? There's people that had said that they think Hawaii was set off by like low-grade nukes. The lava flow is not decreasing; it's been increasing, and there's no let up in sight. And of course, we have the other earth changes going on as well. We have the volcano in Guatemala. There's volcanoes waking up all over right now, all throughout the Ring of Fire. And we had those strange, bizarre earthquakes going straight across the U.S. in a straight line that awfully looked like, it looked a lot like somebody was tunneling, building more bunkers for the elite to escape to. God, I wish we could see exactly what lies under the surface as far as those subterranean tunnels and bunkers. And I wish we could know exactly who is down there. There have been a lot of people sensing something big coming. And so many people have felt very sick and very tired, for sure. A lot of stomach nausea, and also a lot going on with headaches. And this could be related, perhaps, to increase in UV, and we are seeing UVC, which is not supposed to make it all the way down to the surface, actually being measured on the surface. And the Schumann resonance has been very, very high. It's been running high for quite a while now. Every time I check it, it's running very high. And so, it's reflecting the consciousness of the planet, and the consciousness of the planet is changing, and we are a part of that planet, so our consciousness is changing as well. And that's part of what's going on here. Really, the most important thing is our recognition of our own consciousness and how it affects our reality, our individual reality, and the mass reality that we see as well. So there's a huge shift underway. Definitely the 100th monkey is on the loose, for sure. And people are waking up in droves. They're waking up to all these ways that we're being disrupted, with, like, say, 5G, the 5G towers. All the EMF we're getting bombarded with, as well as the fact of the magnetosphere decline, and we're getting hit with so much more UV as well, and cosmic rays coming in. The storms that we are seeing are just incredible. These storms are just different. This year has been different, and it really makes you wonder, what are we going to be seeing a couple years from now? What's it going to be like? These storms that are just demolishing, entire roadways, if they happen on a regular basis and increase in intensity, it's just, are we all going to need, like, massive four-wheel drive vehicles to get anywhere? Or are we going to end up needing our own little helicopters to get around, or boats perhaps? It's just crazy. And we do have that alignment coming up as well, with all the planets being on the right side of the sun. And typically when that does happen, there are more massive quakes and volcanic eruptions, and you guys know it's coming. It's coming. We could feel it. We could sense it. And with my talks with Asia as well, she had sensed like a build-up, and then we're in that time period where now she felt like there would be there's certain things that are still going to come in the meantime, but perhaps there being a little bit of a lull before some major events as well. And both her and I sense that August is going to be a month for us here in Florida and us in the Gulf Coast. That's going to be very trying. and I would expect that we'll probably see major hurricanes in that time frame again. But it's all about preparation in every way, shape, or form. And the preparation that I'm always stressing to everybody is not just the physical, it's the emotional, it's the mental, it's the spiritual, it's the bigger picture, because we are spiritual beings having a 3D physical experience. And even in a worst case scenario, and we don't make it physically, I totally believe we go on. I don't think there's just a black nothing when the body dies. And I'm too energy sensitive to believe that. I've had experiences all my life with all sorts of wild things. And as I've shared with you guys before, and if you're new you might not know, but I was part of a group called the Eastern States Paranormal Society, and I did get contacted by them to help them in paranormal investigations. And so I've done that as well, and actually have helped clear houses, clear different buildings, and help some trapped entities to move on as well. So I've experienced a lot of things. I've actually I'll share with you guys this one time. I was in a place in Union, South Carolina, that was turned into a bed and breakfast, but it was a plantation home, and it was built, I think, somewhere around 1840, 1850. And so it was a plantation home, and it was an amazing, amazing property. And all throughout the years, the owner had so many people talk about their experiences there. Of people, having different things happen in different rooms, people seeing things, hearing things, actually getting physically touched by entities, all sorts of weird things going on. So we did an investigation there, and we had a lot of weird occurrences. We had, when we were sitting in the dining room and we couldn't see the kitchen, we'd hear things opening and closing in the kitchen. And we had wild EMF readings where obviously there was some sort of entities coming around us, cold spots, you name it. So it was a very, very interesting investigation. And at that time I was the only one in the group, and there was 7 of us on that investigation. I was the only one that was not with anybody. I had no partner at that time. And so they stuck me in this one room by myself, and they didn't happen to tell me that it was the one that was kind of the most haunted. But when I sat down in the bed at like 4:30 a.m. after being up for about 20 hours, dead tired, I just sat on the edge of the bed and just plopped down, laid down there, and just relaxing a second. And I was going to get undressed and get under the covers, but I was just too tired to at that moment. So while I was laying there, all of a sudden I felt down by my left knee the bed depress and move downwards. And then down by my right knee it depressed. And then down by my left hip it depressed. And it was like something was climbing on top of me. And then down by my right hip it depressed. And then all of a sudden something warm laid down right on top of me. And I just said to it, "I feel you." And it just lifted and disappeared. And the weirdest thing was that it was warm. It was like a warm body. It was unusual, because I've felt spirits before and they're almost always cold. So that was so weird that this entity did come and lie down right on top of me. And then going through, like, they kept this little log right by the bedside, and I was flipping through it where people could write things like, "Oh, thank you, wonderful stay, I loved it," etc. And there was so many entries saying that a spirit came and spooned with me in the middle of the night and freaked them out. So it was really, really interesting. When we went and listened to the voice recordings we got in that room, we heard African chanting. It was as if somebody was doing some sort of ritual and just chanting the same thing over and over and over again. it didn't feel malignant at all. It wasn't like it was going to attack me or anything. It felt kind of frisky. Made me think more of incubus and succubus, those legends. But it didn't really even feel sexual, though. It was weird. It was kind of like a warmth, almost like something craving love. Honestly, it was kind of strange. But that was one of the weirdest things I ever experienced in our investigations, and did experience a lot of different things like that. And seen a lot of orbs, gotten many photos of orbs, and got incredible voice recordings where when I'd ask a question, they would just answer straight back, and you could hear them so clearly. And it was just pretty fascinating. So if you guys are out there, take a chance right now. Give us a call. We have a little bit left. We got about another 13 minutes left in the program. So give a call at 229-299-5320 and say hi. Say hi, my friends out there. Share with us some of your stories. There are so many things in this world that are just fascinating and interesting. And I've experienced like all sorts of things. Honestly, I think it's, some might think it's because I have Rh negative blood. I do think there is something to that, because it does seem that people that are abducted have Rh negative blood more often than not. So why do they keep track of that? Is it a particular bloodline? Are they doing certain experiments on certain bloodlines? How would you guys view life differently if you knew for sure that where we are right now, we're basically in a big ant farm, and that there's entities, beings, that are watching and monitoring everything we do, and they do experiments on us, and they want to see how we react to things. So, do I have a caller on the line?
Yes. Hey.
Hello. Well, thank you for joining me. Who do we have here?
Yeah, my name's Caleb here in Colorado Springs.
Hey, Caleb. Well, thank you for joining us, and welcome aboard. And what would you like to talk about?
I just want to talk about how much I love your channel and the earth changes going on, and I love how you keep updates on them.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Caleb. It's something I love to do. We're definitely living in very, very interesting times. Have you?
Yeah, I love all the energy updates you give as well, and the Archangel Michael channels and everything.
Well, thank you. Do you have anything you want to share? Have you ever had any unusual experiments yourself? Experiences yourself?
I have seen one UFO, and I've had multiple experiences with spirits and things like that, but nothing super supernatural myself as far as experiences or, telepathy or anything like that. But
And the UFO that you saw, what was it, like a classic saucer? Was it one of those triangles?
it was actually a saucer that just flew completely across the sky. I was sitting on my back deck, and me and my wife were there, and it flew across the sky almost like a shooting star, but it was cloud covered below the clouds, so it just flew all the way across the sky. Pretty incredible. Couldn't believe it happened at all, and yeah, it was the first one I ever saw. 29 years old. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you see something like that, it changes things, It just changes your whole mindset when you experience it yourself. I saw a triangular one, and it was clear as day, and my feeling was that it wasn't aliens. My feeling was it was military. So I got that strong impression. And I could just sense it. But at the same time, it was really clear because it was only about maybe 250 feet up. I mean, it was really low, and it moved so slow. It was only going maybe 10 miles an hour that I got to watch it for like 20 minutes. And my ex-wife was there, and my daughter was there as well, and they both saw it. And it was actually so slow when we were at the beach that I wanted to go follow it when it started to get out of sight. And my daughter was freaking out, and she was crying and screaming, so I didn't because she was kind of afraid of it. But had such a close view of it. It just changes your mind. Like for me now, after seeing that, okay, I have no doubt about there being a secret space program. I have no doubt that we have technology that's so far ahead of what they're telling us. It just changes things when you actually experience stuff yourself.
I can so agree. I have been researching and doing my own studies and practicing meditation for about 3 years now, trying to find out what I can about, this reality and trying to figure out what we're dealing with here, And I've done a lot of research into the secret space program as well. I do believe what I saw was alien. It was the night that me and my wife found out that we were pregnant and everything, so it was pretty substantial to me. Mine was extremely fast. I had been watching aircraft go through the night, out on the back deck all night. Here in Colorado Springs, it's pretty normal to see military aircraft. But yeah, this was just a really bright stream with a little tail all the way across the sky. And I mean, from west to east, all the way across, pretty extremely fast. So.
Yeah, curious. So is either one of you Rh negative? Do you know?
My wife is actually.
She is, yeah. So that's curious. Just as I was saying before, Rh negatives, that they're the ones that they tend to track and tend to watch. So we laugh and saying, well, okay, well that was going across the sky, so it might have been arranged for 1,000 people to see, but you guys saw it, so it makes you wonder, is that a sign that perhaps they're going to monitor? Do you know, is your child Rh negative?
We don't know yet. We're about 11 weeks in,
okay.
And we're about to find out all of that stuff in one of our next visits and everything. But we're interested to find that out as well. And that's really interesting that you say that, because that's exactly the feeling that we got right when it streamed across, because we were talking about some extremely big issues, and things that were going on in our life. And I mean, right when it streamed across, it just gave us this feeling of like being, okay and comforted and like watched, like we were being watched over, as if everything was going to be okay. And it was an amazing feeling and everything, and it was the first time I'd ever seen a UFO. My wife has had experiences in the past, but as my first experience, and it's the first time I'm going to be a father as well, so it was a pretty amazing experience. But going into these times, I don't know what to expect, but I'm keeping optimism and pretty excited about it.
Well, congratulations, Caleb. And then also, I mean, so you haven't seen before, she has. She's Rh negative. See, that's something that I personally have found to be the case a lot. Like when I talk to people that have had a lot of experiences, more often than not, they're Rh negative. And, it was interesting. One of my ex-girlfriends, we were sitting out in her backyard and staring up at the sky, and I was just telling her about some of the things that I had experienced. Now, she was O positive, and she was saying, well, I've never seen anything in my life. Never, never, never. And then like 2 hours later, we're just sitting out there watching the stars, and this thing went by, and I'd seen one of these things before. It was basically almost like the size of a man, but it looked kind of more like some sort of bird, but it was glowing and golden. And her impression was that it was pure energy, but something that was still more alive and not necessarily a ship, and it was, again, only maybe 50 feet up in the air. So it was interesting because it was probably like 6 to 8 feet long, and I've seen something like that before. I saw it in South Carolina when I was out in the backyard with my son, and he saw it with me, and twice it flew overhead, changing directions, and it almost looked to me like this giant glowing owl that was golden and made of pure energy. I have no idea what it was. None at all. But it just hit me as very strange, and it's just one of those things that usually the people that see these things are Rh negative, and I don't know if there's that'd be a good thing to research as well. Increased psychic abilities in people that are Rh negative, as well as definitely, there are definitely people that are monitored by these beings and kept track of, and some have said that they need that Rh negative bloodline to use the people, I guess, in some ways. Perhaps actually, some think there's a hybrid program going on, and perhaps they use Rh negative people for that, because that's the only ones that they could blend with their own DNA. All very interesting thoughts. I'm not sure, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, the whole blending of the DNA definitely makes sense to me. It's honestly the first time I've thought about the Rh negative, because I've known my wife is Rh negative here for quite some time now. And it's an interesting thought to think about that as being them using the Rh negative to kind of come in here as a dimension, as their way, that's how they can maybe come into this dimension or whatever, but that is kind of interesting. I'd be interested to find out if my child's going to be Rh negative as well then, and definitely be looking out for more sightings and feeling like we're watched over and stuff like that, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I do really like that as an idea, though. I want to do more research into that as the Rh negative now that you do mention that. Because it's, like I said, it's something that I've known for a while about my wife, and we didn't think we could get pregnant because of it, because I am OH positive as well. And, we had problems getting pregnant, and now this baby is kind of, a miracle, as you would say. But yeah, and I'm kind of interested to look into that more now that you talk about it, honestly.
Well, definitely do, my friend. We've got about 30 seconds left, so I want to thank you so much for calling. And I know sometimes it takes bravery to actually give a call. And I want to say God bless and namaste to you, your wife, and your little one. May you guys be blessed with abundance of all types and kept safe throughout the earth changes.
Yes, I want to thank you for taking my call and having me on the show. Namaste to you as well, and you have a great night.
Thanks, Caleb. Take care, brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So that was Caleb, and that was some interesting thoughts there as well. And, I just want to kind of wrap up tonight by saying much love, my friends. Love this Evolutionary Energy Arts family. And if there's any of you out there that are just checking it out and not family, come and be family. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. See you next time. Thank you, guys. Namaste, love and light.